Tryreek Hill. He was driving to the game. When was it? Sunday, Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sunday.
And he's driving, I think, his McLaren. He's speeding. He's pulled over by cops. He's close to the stadium. And people are, the fans who are going into the stadium are driving by and like, is that Tryreek Hill?
Yeah, they noticed.
And the cop knocked on the window a couple of times and said, hey, roll your window down. And he's like, no. And they're like, roll the window down. And he's kind of a punk about it. Eventually, it ends up they pull him out of the car, throw him down on the ground, and they cuff him. I'm having a hard time seeing, you just don't treat the cops that way. I don't care who you are. You just don't treat the cops that way. But it's a big mess now. And Jason Whitlock is with us, host of BlazeTV Fearless, which if you haven't watched yet, you need to. It's really into culture, and Jason is a spiritual guy, a faithful follower of God, really struggles with questions of the day and tries to get it right, and tries to be, look for the righteous answers on things, and he does a fabulous job, and I'm proud to call him my friend. Jason, welcome.
Good to be here, Glenn.
So tell me, what is happening with this, and why is this so divisive? Why are people defending Tryreek Hill?
Because he's black, and we're in an election cycle, and we need a George Floyd, or the left needs a George Floyd, and they're trying to make it out of Tryreek Hill. He's not a victim here. He triggered the police first by speeding past a police officer in what clearly looks like a construction zone that's going to get you pulled over. And then he's, in a $500,000 car.
I was going to say, it's hard to be the oppressed when you're in a McLaren 720S.
Yeah. And so, when they're asking him to roll down his windows, because his windows are tinted jet black, you can't see inside. And so he briefly rolls it down and gives them his driver's license, I think, and maybe registration. But then he rolls his window back up, and that triggers the police because now they have a suspect who's rolled his windows up. They can't see what he's doing. Is he getting a gun? Is he trying to throw away drugs or swallow drugs? Mm-hmm. They don't know because the guy didn't have enough time to figure out, this is the Miami Dolphins star wide receiver.
But if you handed let me play the other side. If he handed him his driver's license, it says Tryreek Hill. You'd know the name.
It may not mean anything to that police officer.
Okay.
Glenn, let's say you were that police officer.
No, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that's a tiny bit of a stretch, but even if it is a football player, do we have to go much beyond O.J. Simpson, Ray Caruth, and many other criminal professional athletes to say, hey, roll that window down. I need to see what you're doing. Did you have drugs? Could you have a gun? I don't know.
Are you only saying that as a black man because he's a black man? Why do you hate black people so much, Jason?
Because, and again, I don't. I'm just not into racial idolatry. And any human is capable of being flawed, and so I'm talking about Tryreek Hill not as a black person. He's a flawed human being. He's a man, and he handled this in a very poor way, and he triggered the police. And you get the energy that you put out because he starts yelling at the police. Why you got to bang on my window like that? And that's not how you deal with the police, particularly when you're in the wrong. I'm a speeder, Glenn, and so when I get pulled over for speeding, the first words out of my mouth are, I'm sorry, officer. How fast was I going?
It's exactly what I say.
Out of my mouth.
Yeah.
First, I'm sorry. Because because one, I recognize the police officers, just like any other worker, the less work he can do, the better. And so I've caused him now. He's got to pull someone over. He doesn't know, is this going to be a hassle? And so I've triggered the officer, so I say, I'm sorry. And so now to see Tryreek Hill holding press conferences, demanding that this officer or officers get fired. I'm like, are you kidding me? And because Tryreek Hill's history, when he entered the league out of college, there were allegations of him beating up his pregnant girlfriend.
Oh, geez.
That was a controversy when he got drafted in the NFL. There's been a controversy about a young child of his and how the child got his arm broken. Was it Tryreek Hill? Was it the baby's mama? He's had several incidents. He's an irresponsible person. He has at least 10 children, maybe 12, by 6 different baby mamas. This is a very irresponsible person. He's speeding in a construction area, and he's dealing with the police in a poor way. And I don't know how we've reached the conclusion that he's a victim. He's not.
He's not a victim. Is that the way most people look at it, Stu? That he's a victim?
That is definitely the mainstream media perception of it.
Well, mainstream media.
That is definitely what I've heard all over sports media. They all are seemingly terrified of saying that he did anything wrong at all. And it's like, well, I treat the guy with respect.
This is amazing because this is the way the elites work. They think they know better. They think they get special privileges. If I'm pulled over by the police, I say the same thing that you do, Jason. I'm sorry, how fast was I going? I don't expect any special treatment at all. If I do get it, I guess I'm a little, thank you, and let's get out of here before you change your mind. But the elites, like Hunter Biden, who is white, do the same thing. They treat people poorly because don't you realize who I am? That's a real problem. That's not the way we should behave in our society.
Look at all the what he triggered with his speeding, with his disrespect, his unwillingness to roll down his window. Now the next thing you know, his teammates that are also driving into the stadium, they see him, they pull over to the side of the road, and they start questioning the police on the spot, on the scene. And these are large men, football players, getting out of their cars. And so now the police are like, hold on. Now I got Calais Campbell, 6'8", 315 pounds, questioning me. This is a nightmare scenario for police. It's dangerous for drivers. It's a mess. And now Calais Campbell, and I think there's another teammate, they briefly get detained because they want to bicker back and forth with the police. Again, all the procedures tell the police, don't let bystanders start getting in and increasing the tension and the conflict. And so Tryreek Hill's irresponsible behavior puts him in harm's way, puts the police officers in harm's way, puts his teammates in harm's way, puts other motorists in harm's way, and Caitlin Collins has him on CNN and treats him for 8 straight minutes like he did nothing wrong, and these racist police officers and blah, blah, blah. And this is the world. It's backwards. Here's a man worth a couple $100 million with 10 to 12 kids that he's responsible for, and we're holding him to the lowest standard when he should have the highest standard. He's got more to protect, more to lose, more people counting on him. We should be like, Tryreek, what are you doing here?
I got to tell you, but he also is forced to drive a McLaren. He doesn't have a Bugatti. I mean, the guy is clearly oppressed.
Jason, is it true that at some point he had mentioned something about, while he was sitting on the sidewalk there, that this was all about him being black in America?
Oh my God.
And the officers responded that they too, I believe, were dark. This was the term they used. because they were Hispanic officers. Is that actually accurate?
Absolutely accurate. And yes, he did. I'm just a black man in America. And they were like,
I hate that.
just Latino. You know, it's. Listen, the guy has been granted second and third chances to have this career. And here's a police officer. Let's speculate. Maybe the guy makes between $80,000 and $120,000 a year, driving a motorcycle, doing very dangerous work. And he's trying to destroy this man who probably has a wife and or kids. He's trying to destroy him, trying to deny this man, who doesn't really need a second chance, but trying to deny him forgiveness for whatever little, you know, if I were doing a pie of who was in the wrong here, Tryreek Hill is 96 to 97% in the wrong. And maybe there's 3% of the officers being a tiny bit aggressive with him.
I have to tell you, this hurts people who are actually oppressed, because this really does happen, you know, with cops, and we know it. But when you have this guy coming out and treating cops like garbage and saying he's the oppressed one, it hurts. It hurts the real stuff. It's so bad. Listen, Jason, I've got to run, but I want to ask you, what'd you think of the debate? And how do you think that's playing?
I'm thinking the debate will have no impact. I think Kamala Harris exceeded extremely low expectations. And I think that, and Glenn, you won't get this, but Stu might. I think Donald Trump missed as many layups as Angel Reese, which was disappointing. I thought he could have laid her to waste, but she exceeded expectations. He missed some layups, and a week from now, no one will care.
How do you think guys took to her job? I mean, if Donald Trump would have treated her like that, he would have lost 20 points. She just treated him like garbage. How do you think men in particular took to that?
I think we've grown to expect it. You know, she's been classified as a black woman and a feminist and a queen and blah, blah, blah. And so, men have we've allowed it. We expect it. We've bought into a narrative that the history of men is just their brutal mistreatment of women. And so women have a right to be angry, and they have a right to reparations and blah, blah, blah. And so we owe them something. And so, it was a bad look to me, and Trump certainly couldn't get away with it because he would have been called racist and every other name in the book. But, just all the facial expressions and all the just disrespect. But, she wasn't alone. David Meir and
I know.
Kamala's the other woman was Kamala's sorority sister. They're in a sorority together, AKA the other moderator.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It was one side. And black people take sorority life and fraternity life very serious post graduation. Perhaps more serious after graduation than when they're actual students.
Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. BlazeTV host of Fearless, Jason Whitlock. You can find him on YouTube at youtube.com/Jason Whitlock or BlazeTV, theblaze.com/fearless.